Hey everyone, welcome to Parent to Parent. Happy Monday. It is great to see you all here. I'm delighted to be here with you. Today we have a special guest with us, Coach Carrie. She and I are going to talk about how to keep your kids engaged and responsible in the summer. It's going to be a great conversation. But before we get to that, I always like to remind you that I am the author of Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, a Parent's Manual. You can grab your copy on Amazon and enjoy the book. There's lots of great pieces no matter what age your child is, from small child all the way up to teenager. This book is for you, so check that out. And if you ever want any help and support by doing a book study with my book, please reach out to me. I'm happy to do some evenings with a parent group, virtually, in person if you're nearby, and so would be happy to do that with you. So without further ado, I would like to bring up our guest, Coach Carrie. Hi, Coach Carrie. Nice to see you.
Hi, Dr. Tanya. Always nice to see you as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. This has been in the works for quite a while. She has been on my list for a while. We had our first coffee chat a few months ago and just hit it right off. So excited to have you here. So let me give you a little bit of an introduction. Coach Carrie is she is I'm sorry, let me grab my notes here, licensed financial coach and retirement specialist. That's important, right? We all need that information. And she's also the founder and visibility coach. And so she does that as well. And she hosts her show. What is the title of your show? Coach Carrie Connects. Coach Carrie.
Yes,
Yes, on Saturdays. We were just talking about that.
absolutely.
Yeah. So tell everybody a little bit more about you. What did I miss? What else completes Coach Carrie?
Well, outside of being a licensed financial coach and a certified clarity coach and a keynote speaker, I spent 20 years as a public school educator. So I work with parents, professionals, school districts, just to bring clarity to conversations that actually change outcomes. So money and mindset are always connected. We know that that starts at home. But I also have a teenage son. So I'm a mom as well, and looking forward to this conversation.
I know. And that's when we started talking about this. We were like, I'm like, she's got some great experience from being an educator, also her financial wellness. We're going to talk about an article that she recently wrote that would really resonate with a lot of you. So make sure to check that out. We'll get into that in a minute. So thank you, Leanna, for joining us today. We're excited to have you, as well as Christy Williams. Thanks for your support. We're happy to have you join us. And then Carrie also dropped in there to follow her Facebook page and check her out as well on LinkedIn. So happy to have you here. So tell me, how do you handle summer with your son?
Well, I always tell him the structure does not take a vacation just
Mm,
because school is on vacation. And summer in my house really looks like routine changes, but the expectations don't change. So he knows that free time is earned, it's not assumed. And what I really love is that we plan the summer together at the start. So he has input and then we hold each other accountable. He's a little bossy at 16, but we hold each other accountable to what we agreed to do. So one of our favorite things to do is movies on Fridays or Sundays, depending on what fits into my schedule. But usually Fridays or Sundays, we do movies. And we always get a movie pass every summer. And he gets to choose the movies. Oh, my goodness.
I love that. So you go someplace to watch the movies together.
Yes, we get up and that's our way of getting out of the house.
So go back to that phrase that you said. I wanted to remember it and I forgot it. Structure doesn't change, but the time change. What is that? How did you state that at the beginning?
So I don't remember, girl. I'm
It
just
was so good.
flowing.
I'll
But
find it.
I know what I tell him is that structure doesn't take a vacation just because school does.
That's
And
right. Structure
so,
doesn't take the vacation. I love that because it's so true, right?
hmm
When we are working with our kids and we have them at home, you still have those expectations at the house. You still have to run a household just because their daily activity has changed a little bit. You still have those
hmm
expectations and that structure at home, right?
yeah.
That I love that. And, I love Christy has, dropped this note in here as well. I used to have my son do lessons, and that is a great thing too, right? To keep them up to date and sharp on their lessons, things that they would need to do, maybe reading, practicing some math facts, doing
Well,
some.
absolutely. All of those things are really important. I believe that when children have a say in the plan, that they're more likely to follow through on it. So if it's using virtual programs, if it's reading books, all of those things, as long as you all talk, if they're old enough to have that conversation with you and talk about it together, I think that helps out a lot. So I think those are great ideas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what type of structures do you have in your home that your son is required to follow, even when he's on vacation?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to make up your bed when you get up. He still is responsible for the laundry and taking out the trash. He has to help me in the kitchen. That's the new thing now that he's older because I love to cook. And so I've had to step aside and allow him some time in the kitchen as well. So he'll tell me what's on the menu. And I absolutely love that. It's so much fun because structure is not punishment, it's really a gift. So I know that children thrive when they know what to expect. It's the same way in the classroom. So if you have a house and you don't have structure, that's where emotions start to run things. So routines, I believe, help children with safety. It helps them to focus on growing and just being children instead of guessing what's going to come next. And it does not have to, let me just say this, because a lot of times when people hear structure, Dr. Tanya, they think rigidity. And
Yes, they
structure
do.
does not structure doesn't have to be rigid, it just has to be consistent. So what wake up time, meal time, responsibility time, free time. And when you have that rhythm, it just tells a child that my life has order and order is safe. And I think they become some of the most successful adults because the people that I coach are usually the ones that had the least amount of structure growing up.
Hmm. Absolutely, right? That structure is an expectation. And hello, Leslie
Hmm.
Flowers. Thank you for joining us. So great to have you here again from North Carolina. I love that. Children do thrive with routines. And you're right. Some people think that you are, that it's a negative connotation.
Hmm.
But I always bring it back to don't we want to know, like, when you go to work every day, don't you want to know what time you're to go to work? Don't you want to know what tasks you're required to complete? What time is lunch? When
Oh,
can I
come on.
take a break? When do I get to leave? Right? Those are some things that we have to know. Those are the things that when we start new jobs or go places, we need to know those things right off the bat. Like, how do we do that? What is this? How long is this going to be? You probably remember this being in the classroom. I remember it. How long are we going to do this for? I would get
Right.
that question all. How long are we doing math for today? Same amount of time we did yesterday, 60 minutes, or what are we doing next, right? Teachers always
Yes,
ask that question. What's next? Because kids really do thrive on that structure and routine.
they do.
And I did the same thing as well. I required my kids to also have that structure and routine put together, and they didn't always love it. I'm not going to lie, they didn't always love it, but they did it, and I do think it made them become a far more successful professionals now.
Hmm. Hmm.
I had one daughter as an athlete, one daughter as a dancer at the time, so there was a lot to determine and organize in the family and the household. So I love that those comments about structure and routine, and I loved how you talked about how it provides safety for kids.
Yeah.
Talk about, how does having a structure, routine lifestyle provide safety for them?
Well, I think it's just what you said in terms of the classroom. It's because you know what to expect. So, those three L's that you just talked about, how long are we going to do this? That's extremely important. My favorite is lunch, right? And then when do I get to leave? Like, when does this end? And so, I think when children know that, I think it just makes things a little bit easier for them. And then when they become adults, they understand structure and order and intentional timing and how to plan. And so those are the people who are not rebuilding their lives as adults, they're just thriving.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And knowing, right? Knowing
Hmm.
what you want, as a kiddo really helps you, you know, it does make you feel safe. Like there's a sense of security knowing what's next, right? It's that
Yeah.
fear of unknown is gone. And so I don't know, do you work from home, Coach Carrie, or do you work out of the home?
I work from home.
Okay. So you kind of have an eye on him the whole time. Yeah, at least an ear.
No. I actually don't have an eye on him the whole time. I used to when he was younger. When he was younger, he was in public school and I was working in the public school. But now that he's older, he has his own office. So he's downstairs in his office. I'm upstairs in my office, and we kind of meet in the middle.
I see. But you know where he's at in the home is what I mean.
Oh,
Like
definitely.
you know he's home or he's out with friends or his friends have come over. Like you're aware of all of that. And I would
Yes.
get up and my mother did this for me. I would get up in the morning and I would make a list for my kids. And I would say, today you have to unload the dishwasher, you have to fold the laundry, sweep the kitchen floor, read for 20 minutes, remember to call your grandma or so and so's coming by today, whatever it was. And because I worked out of the home when they were home in the summer. So
Hmm.
once they were in middle school, I was a principal by that time, which was perfect timing. They could be by themselves and that sort of thing. And so that really helped them. And they to this day are always, we go on vacation, who's got the list? What do we need to bring? Where's the list? They're wanting a list. Someone make me a list because it keeps us organized. We know what's coming next. And so I love that as well. So how do you instill that responsibility in your son? Being responsible. Like we can bestow all of these expectations on
Hmm.
children, but how do we instill that responsibility?
So for me, I think responsibility, I make sure that I'm not doing a lecture. It's a practice. So children usually learn by watching and then they learn by doing. And so not just by hearing about it, right? So the talking over and over and kind of repeating yourself over and over again. So in my house, everybody has a responsibility, and you just make age appropriate contributions, not busy work. And so when he sees that the household runs because of his efforts, oh, that's why I told you he bossy. He internalizes that his actions matter. And so I make sure that I assign real tasks with real consequences if they don't get done. I let him experience the natural consequences of not following through. What happens if you don't follow through? And then, of course, we all love to be praised. And so I praise his effort. I praise the follow through, not just the result, because even if you don't get exactly what we were looking for, that effort and that follow through is extremely important. And responsibility and no consequences is really just a suggestion. And so I want him to know that when you're responsible for something, there are consequences, and the consequences can be positive and negative.
Right, they really can. And a lot of people, again, we talked about this at the very beginning. People think that this responsibility and these expectations are negative. They're not. Like
Hmm.
they can be great things. You can come home and go, "Wow, look at what a great job you did today," or "Tell me about the chapters. Let's sit down together." This is rewarding for your child to sit down together with you and talk about what did they learn today, what did they work on, or in the kitchen, like you were talking about. This can be fun. Your son might be making the menu, right, for the week,
Yes.
the dinner. And well, what can I help you with, son, in dinner? And he's learning new skills and building
Hmm.
confidence and having that responsibility that are going to lead him to live an independent adult life. And
Yeah.
I loved how you talked about the natural consequences because there are, right?
Hmm.
Literally, you don't take the trash out, it gets smelly, we get bugs. Like
Right.
there's natural consequences to some of these things that we have. Well, I want to take a second and acknowledge those that are in the audience again. Leslie Flowers, thank you. In the summer, I would get the classics and make sure that each child read one per week. I love that. That's a big ask. One per week. That's a big one.
Hmm.
I'm curious, Leslie, is what was their favorite classic that they read? Jedi J from Maryland, thank you very much. Or Massachusetts, I'm sorry, Massachusetts. My son locks himself in his room. Christy, I know. She loves lists. She's a very organized girl, I know. During summertime, kids have to be surrounded by new discoveries. I'm a museum dude. Oh, Jay, I like that you
Oh,
brought that up about museums. Yes, I like those as well. Technology used tech 24/7 is not responsible. Very good. Yes, we've got to put limits on those things, don't we?
Hmm.
I love that. Chore list. Yes, it is so important for our kids to have that. So, what do you think is the most important expectation you have in your home, Coach Carrie?
Integrity, hands down. Do what you say you're going to do, and that's it. Everything else flows from integrity. So if my son tells me that he's going to do something, I expect it to be done, or I expect him to come to me before the deadline and tell me why he can't do it. No excuses after the fact. And if it's something that comes up where it can't be done in that moment, he knows that within a certain amount of time, it's like, Mom, I can't get it done by this time, but I'll have it done by this time. Because I really believe, Dr. Tanya, that expectation transfers directly to how they'll show up at work, how children will show up in their businesses, how children show up in relationships, and how they will show up with money. So integrity is really the foundation of any outcome that matters. So whatever you practice at home, that's what you're going to perform everywhere else.
I love that. I do. I think integrity is huge as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Follow through, do what you say you're going to do, complete that commitment, even if it's what you didn't love. You
Yeah.
just have to complete it. You've got integrity, and that is a huge characteristic for people to have. I love that so much. One of the things I really want to talk about is that article that you wrote about jobs for kids in the summer. So you're talking about in your article 16 and up aged kids, right? 15
Yes.
maybe. Could be maybe 15 with a work permit at some places or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or working for a person who has a small business or something like that. But can you go through some of those things about the jobs that you recommend, that you warned about, some of those things that we can share with everybody?
Absolutely. And I appreciate the opportunity to share about that because I really wrote that article, Dr. Tanya, because my son is talking about working outside of the home. So he works for my business, but then I want him to get some real world experience and meet some other people. And sometimes people are not having these conversations at home. And I think we should be. And the work from home economy is different right now because so many adults are out of work that a lot of teenagers are not really able to find summer jobs, and some of them are looking for summer jobs that are online. So if you're 16 or older, and like you said, with the work permit, you can be as young as 14 in some states. I know when I was growing up in Illinois, it was 14 years old.
Okay.
And if you have a marketable skill, you can earn some real money this summer. And you don't necessarily have to leave the house. You can do freelance writing. You can do social media management for local businesses, online tutoring. You can be a virtual assistant. You can do graphic design. So these are things that teenagers are actually doing right now where they're making money. But like you mentioned, there's this side that a lot of people are not talking about, and that's the danger because for every legitimate opportunity, there are scams. And it's a lot that are designed to take advantage of people who are motivated, trusting teenagers. They don't know. So you have like the reshipping scams, the envelope stuffing, the pyramid style program. So I believe I put in the article, a legitimate opportunity is not going to ask a teenager to pay to work.
Yes, you
So
did. Hmm.
three things have to be clear before you sign up. That's what the work is, what the pay is, and how payment is going to be delivered. If you don't have those three things, then walk away. But I think it goes a little bit further than that because if you have documented income this summer, you're eligible for a custodial Roth IRA,
Tell us
which I
about what
think.
that is. Yeah.
So the custodial Roth IRA is just that a single $7,500 contribution. When you're 15 years old, literally by the time you're 65 in the right account, that could be $880,000.
Wow.
And that's based on historical S&P 500 or Standard and Poor 500 returns. So you work one summer, but then you have all these decades of compounding. And that's the conversation that I feel families should be having because that can change the trajectory of your life. That if as a teenager, if you work and start saving and start investing, that you really could become a millionaire or close to it when later in life. I mean, even if it's an extra $1,000, wouldn't that be great? Who
Yeah.
doesn't need an extra $1,000
So
right
is the
now?
maximum to put in 7,500 for the year for the custodial?
Yes.
But what's the minimum they can put in?
So, depending on the company, there may not be a minimum. So, like for the accounts that I open, the minimum is $25, but other companies have different requirements.
Nice, nice.
Hmm.
So those are great things to learn. And, a lot of kids are looking for this work from home, some freelance work. I know they can get jobs or they can look on Fiverr. I think I said that correctly, right? And I think that was a place that you kind of recommended that kids
Hmm.
could go to would be go on Fiverr. So the article is actually linked in the comment section of this video in LinkedIn. So I know that makes it kind of hard, but if you dig into myself and look at the event with Coach Carrie on LinkedIn, that article is in the comments section. So, or you can reach out to one of us and we'll get that article to you because it is really great. Because as parents, maybe you work outside of the home and your kid wants to get this, work from home position. Maybe they have anxiety, they've got health issues, they've got reasons that they just want to do it. Something, you don't want them, you'll have one car, you have the car. Like there's lots of reasons to look for these
Yes.
work from home positions for your kids. Instead of them just sitting around doing nothing, they can start earning money. But you as the parent have to guide them. And I think that's a piece that's super important that Carrie talks about in her article is that you have to look at that. Parents look
Hmm.
at that job notification, read the email line that it's sent from. They should not be paying any money. So as a parent, you need to know those things as you're helping guide your child through the job interview process or looking for a job. So
Hmm.
it is a great article, and our teens are working. They're trying to save money for the school year. A lot of them have to pay their own car insurances or their own spending money or clothing money or whatever this rest of the school year requires for them, dances, clothes, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sports teams. And I
Sports team.
think a good point also, Dr. Tiny, is to start with something they already enjoy or something that they're good at. I think that makes the summer a lot more fun. It's okay to learn new skills but if it's something that they are already good at or even something that they're interested in learning more about, I think that's a great place to start. And then also have them set a goal for what they're going to do with the money that they earn. When I got my first job, my mother told me, both of my parents, my mom and dad, were in agreement that I had to put 1/3 of my money into saving. I had to put 1/3 of my money into the household, and then 1/3 of the money I got to spend however I wanted to spend. But you can start those habits early. So that way, let them make financial mistakes in a low stakes environment so that you can coach them through that process. Because we all know that the best financial education and the best educational in general is experiential, right? So let them
Yes.
earn, let them spend, let them save, let them learn. This is a great time to be a teenager. A lot of
Yeah.
fun things happening.
Yes, yes. I know. I don't know that I gave my kids the best foundation like with those things. I was very busy being a principal. It was hard, it's and
Mhm.
that's why I provide this show. It's hard when you're working and your kids are at home. It is challenging. So we try to give
Yeah.
out tips and ways, and I love that. The 1/3, the 1/3, the 1/3. I always told them to put some in their savings, when they got birthday money or things like that. But they were always responsible for paying their car insurance and their gas.
Mhm.
Once they had a job, when they had a job, they were responsible for. Now we would pay for the other things, the dances, the dresses, but that was our agreement. That doesn't mean that our way is the right way, But I really wished I would have maybe given them more of a budget to
Mhm.
adhere to. So I like that, I really like that. We've got some examples in here. Sorry for covering yourself up, Coach Carrie. Rebecca, thank you for sharing that looking in those CLEP exams for, college prerequisite credits and studying through free course videos. So that's amazing. It's a huge life hack. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with our parents so that they can have that, as well as Leslie Flowers sharing, learning for them to be their word when we were talking about integrity, to be known as someone who
Mhm.
does what they say they will do. And it is huge. It's a huge character trait. You want to be with people who say they're going to do what they said. Um, So, America, this is a really great question. Thank you for coming in and popping this on here. My daughter is now an adult, but I always felt my parenting decisions were downplayed and made not to be important. That is interesting, and I appreciate you sharing that. Coach Carrie, do you have a response for America for that?
Well, I think that in terms of parenting, if you're in a co parenting situation or if you're a parent by yourself, that it's important that all of our opinions are valued. And that's why I said it's important also for children to be a part of that process, a part of that journey when you're planning what it is that you want to do over the summer. So all of us have different situations. You know, my parents were married until my mom passed away at the age of 39 years old. You know, I am with my son's father, and so until he passed away. And so all of these things, when it comes to those parenting decisions, it goes down to the basics of communication. And so we want children to not feel like their opinions and their positions are being downplayed. And we want, you know, the dads and moms, we want them to be able to figure it out and be able to get along. And that's why I think therapy is so important. You know, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're dating, whether you're in a situationship, right? Therapy and counseling are just extremely important because they give you those skills and those strategies that you can use to help your children.
Yeah, I agree. And so, America, this was your original question about co-parenting. How can we best
Hmm.
help our children when we as parents don't get along? And I've worked with a lot of parents, just like Carrie had said, who I would be in the office, my office with them, and they could not see eye to eye on the education plan for their child. And I would just tell them, we have to make a decision in the best interest of this child. And
Hmm.
if you start putting the child first and what really is the best interest of that child, and then you can work together at making those parenting decisions and not putting the child in the middle, you know.
Hmm.
I don't always go to the child on the age, depending on the age, and ask them what do they prefer,
Right.
because I don't want to put the child in the middle. And so I think that is something that you refrain from. Now, if your child was 17 years old, you may want to talk as a cohort group together and say, what is your take on it? And there's a whole chapter in my book, Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, a Parent's Manual, about family meetings and really adopting that mindset. The co-parents have to learn how to put their differences aside and make the decisions in the best interest of the child. And it takes practice. And I agree with Coach Carrie, go to therapy. If you can't do this together, you need to work together with a therapist or a mediator. I mean, I'm thinking a couple of things, Americo. If you've not read Dr. Steve Hudgens' Piece by Piece book, I recommend that you read that. Or you can also reach out to Jackie Hallberg. She does like family mediation, different services for families. She may have been someone, if you're in a situation like Americo, that you would want to go to. So if you have questions about those two people, you can reach out to me or those resources. That's what I'm here for, is to get you resources. So thank you so much for that. And hi, Linda Meyer. Thank you for joining us. I always appreciate seeing you in the audience. All right. And Leslie, that's assuming the parent does that because the children model after their parents. So we have to take a look at ourselves. Are we in integrity? Yes. And then hello, Josette. Thank you for joining us from El Paso, Texas. I had the pleasure of getting to know her last night. All right. Our 30 minutes is running out. I have two more questions for you. They're pretty
Okay.
quick and easy. So what is the most fun that you've had with your son in the summer? What was the most fun thing that you've done?
I think it's the things that you don't plan. You know, it's no agenda, just doing what feels good. And some of our best memories really just came from deciding at 10 o'clock in the morning that we're going to do something that we've never done before. And
Yeah.
so children remember the time that you give them, not necessarily the money that you spent on them. And I just remember jumping in the car and we drove to Atlanta, Georgia. We were like, we're out of here. And so I mean, we just do things like that, you know, fill up the tank, grab some great snacks and just jump in the car. But then there's also times where we just camp out and we will do a movie night at home.
I
And
love
so it doesn't have to be something that costs a lot of money. It can be something that's fun and you can just do those things at home.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And lastly, what is your tip for parents? tip for parents out there to keep their kids engaged and responsible in the summer?
One tip is to make the expectation clear and also to make the expectation theirs. So sit down with them before summer starts and ask them what kind of summer do they want to have. Help them build that plan. I love that you talked about making those lists. I'm a list girl myself. And so I love that idea of making those lists because when they own the goal, they just going to show up differently for that goal and hold the line. Love them enough to mean what you say because consistency is really the most powerful parenting tool that we have.
I love that. I love that. Yes. And thank you, Jay, for your question. Talk about the importance of volunteer opportunities in order to prepare kids and teens for success. That would be a great, great topic. I love that. So, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you, Coach Carrie, for your insight and your time today. It has been a pleasure to have you. We'll have you back. We need to talk about money and kids, so we need to have you back. So we'll find another time to have you back, and we'll give some parents some really great strategies on money for kids, okay? Thank you,
All
everyone.
right.
Yeah. I just want to thank everyone and remind you to go ahead and follow Parent to Parent on YouTube. We also are on Spotify now, so you can also follow our podcast on Spotify. Happy and excited about that, as well as we are on TikTok. So make sure that you're checking out Parent to Parent on TikTok, as I do lots of different videos. I just don't restream these things, so I do different parenting tips and different videos on TikTok. So check those out as well. Thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you, Coach Carrie, for being here tonight. Stick around, Coach Carrie. I'll be back with you. Everyone, have a great Monday. See you next week. Bye.